All right, so we're one past the top of the hour here, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar for today, the 3 unexpected use cases for leveraging the VividSheets API. So just to get started and set the stage for today, we'll give some introductions for who's on the call from VividCharts. Start with myself. I'm Rob Walsh, one of the founders here at VividCharts, and I lead our sales and go-to-market efforts. And what I'm really excited for in today's webinar is that since we've launched VividSheets, everything that you're going to see today in these 3 use cases was brought to us by customers and real problems that they're trying to solve in the field. So really excited to share the problems that they're facing and how we can leverage the VividSheets API to deliver solutions in these areas. So with me today, I'm joined by Gary Deesh, so I'll pass it over to Gary to give a quick intro, and then we'll get into the agenda for today.
Yeah, hi, I'm Gary Deesh. I'm the Chief Product Officer. I'm leading product here. And as many of you might know, VividSheets is one of our newer products. We did a webinar not long ago just showing kind of the introductory of VividSheets. And so today I'm pretty excited to show kind of some expanded use cases with the API, a little bit more advanced use cases than we shared before.
Absolutely. So here's what we're going to walk through structurally today in the webinar. We're going to start with a little bit of background on the product Gary mentioned, VividSheets, which is a newer product for us. We're going to go through each of the 3 use cases. We're going to start with a slide that kind of summarizes the business problem and the solution. And then I'm going to pass it over to Gary as we step through each use case, and he's going to provide a live demonstration of the solutions for each. And then as we're going through the webinar, don't hesitate to drop questions in the comment thread on the LinkedIn page. We'll get to those at the end, so drop them in throughout the presentation, then we'll reserve some time at the end to work through each of those. So just to set the stage and give a little bit of background on the product we're going to be showing today in the demonstration, VividSheets is a new product that we launched on the ServiceNow store. It's actually available totally free today. So literally right after this webinar, you could go install this across all your ServiceNow environments and leverage the capabilities that we're going to walk through today. And the reason we built this product was to provide more flexibility in a spreadsheet-like UI to stage data for reporting purposes. So that could be scenarios where the end report actually is a tabular spreadsheet that we're looking for that contains formulas, calculations on our data, or it could be to stage the data and visualize it in a PowerPoint-like presentation or a dashboard-style use case. And that's where it connects to our base platform called VividCharts. So again, available on the ServiceNow store, totally free. And that gives you a little bit of background on why we built the product and what it's intended to be used for. The 3 use cases we're going to be stepping through today, we'll just step through these in order. Calculating financial data. And in this use case, we're actually going to talk through how to leverage the base capabilities of a VividSheet to calculate the data live and on the fly, but also to leverage our API to write those values back to a ServiceNow table to make data input easier. In the second use case, we're going to look at cumulative reporting and using the VividSheets API to feed data into our VividSheet on a scheduled basis and leverage formulas in the sheet to accumulate that data over time, so then we can then visualize it in a chart in VividCharts. And then lastly, leveraging scripting to just populate and stage our sheet in a fully automated format. So those are the 3 use cases we're going to step through. Let's dig into the details of the first one. So again, we're going to set the stage with the business problem here in the slides, and then I'm going to flip the screen share over and Gary's going to actually demonstrate the solution here. So the business problem this particular customer came to us with was a set of project managers and a finance team that's supporting them that was actually having to produce financial roll-up reports that include data from their finance system and doesn't actually live in ServiceNow. So the current workflow for project managers and the finance team supporting them is to actually pull the data from the finance system out into a spreadsheet, run some Excel-based formulas and functions to consolidate and sum up the data, and then manually copy and paste that data from the spreadsheet into ServiceNow tables so that they can do further roll-up reporting. So the solution Gary's going to walk us through today is going to leverage the VividSheets API to have a sheet that's structured to automatically roll up and sum the data in the way that we need, so that the project managers just need to input the data into the right place in the Vivid sheet. It's going to sum up the values that we need, and an easy function to actually save and push that data into ServiceNow in an automated fashion. So with that, Gary, I'm going to drop the screen share on my end and pass it over to you for the demo.
Perfect. Let's. Okay, you should be looking at the Search API documentation. And I just wanted to call out or highlight this, everything that we are doing today does utilize or kind of uses the strengths of the API. So I just wanted to point out that, a lot of this stuff is documented there. But let's go through the business case that he was talking about. So what we wanted to be able to do was have a sheet that interacted or was able to help get the information and the financials for this project. So this is just a single example, and we're going to be working on kind of the planned operating expense finances for this project. So what we're able to do is for each project, it generates a single sheet for that project. So those finances for that specific project are on a single sheet. Now, what's kind of nice here is just as a UI action down here in the related links, we have this thing that's called Update OpEx. And that, if you click it, opens up and pulls you into the sheet that was generated for this project. So you can see the project ID there. Now, what we have here on the sheet is we have some general ledger accounts. This is some mock data here. So we have 3 rows, getting information each period for each general ledger value. And so, Rob, I think what you were saying is like this was happening outside of, this was happening in Excel outside of ServiceNow was kind of the issue. But what they were having to do is go calculate this stuff and then take the roll up, which is the grand total here, back to ServiceNow. So for this example, let's go change some values here. Let's just say, for period 6 in our first general ledger, let's say we actually spent, let's just make it a simple change. Let's say we spent $6,000 in that. So we've updated that. Now, what this does behind the scenes is, well, you can see here, like the values are getting calculated and totaled up, and we do get a grand total. So you saw that change from 382 to 383. But what we do have here is we have a rule that when it's run, it will update automatically the value on the project itself. So I'm going to hit save here. And then when I hit save, that business rule is run. And now if we go back to the project, we will see that value actually was automatically updated. So just by hitting save, that business rule ran, and then this value was updated on the project itself. So again, automating kind of all that effort for getting those aggregate grand totals into the project here, but also being able to store the details of each general ledger in the sheet itself over time. So I'd go ahead and stop with that one.
Awesome. And I'll jump back into the slide deck here. And as I'm doing that, I'll just call out, as we dug into the use case with that specific prospect, there is a significant amount of data that's getting input into this spreadsheet, and many of those are getting rolled up through various cells in the Vivid sheet that we would be staging. So the concept Gary demonstrated there can be broadened and expanded to larger data sets and use the same functionality to sum up, financial data and write it back to various places on the ServiceNow tables and records themselves. So let's set the stage for the second use case we're going to be talking about. And this, we heard two different terminologies for this type of report. So cumulative style reporting or earned value reporting. And this is very common in the project management space, similar to the first use case. And it could be applied to financial data, which is what we're going to show in the demonstration today, but could also be applied to task data, where you want to see a cumulative count of tasks that were completed actually versus your plan over time. So the business problem we were confronted with was, executives and managers relying on these cumulative reports to assess, health of financials against the project plan, or just task level execution against the project plan, or rolling that up to the program, portfolio, or business unit level. Shared with us that this type of reporting is possible in Excel and Power BI, but was lacking in ServiceNow and the ability to perform it where the data actually lives in the platform. So, current state was project managers exporting the data into Excel, exploring third-party solutions to actually put together these types of reports. So a significant amount of manual effort going into this process. Similar to the last use case, we can leverage the VividSheets API here to stage a Vivid sheet and collect data every month against a specific project, store that data over time, and represent the actual data and the cumulative data in a chart in VividCharts. So this is combining the strengths of the API to actually generate and put the data into the sheet, and leveraging out-of-the-box functions in the sheet to sum up the data in that cumulative fashion over time. So with that, I'll stop sharing and pass it over to Gary again for the demo.
Okay. For this example, we're going to use the same project that we used last time. So just keep in mind that at the end of that last exercise, we ended up with this grand total of 383,700. If we go over to the project, oops, let me pull up the project here. Okay, so again, we had that value that got populated here. So to keep this example kind of simple for this use case, what we're going to do is we're going to use that. Now, in the last example, what was happening was on the sheet itself, when you would hit save, they would run that business rule and then make the update to the record. Well, this is kind of a monthly process that we're looking at here. So in this case, what's going to happen is each month, there's going to be a scheduled job that runs and collects that value and inserts that into the sheet. So I'm going to kind of fake this a little bit. Let's go out to my sheet. Okay, so here's an example. And you can see like so we have January, February, March, April, May. And then you can see that this value is pulled from that sheet, but it hasn't been run yet because, again, it's pulled up monthly. So just to kind of look at this sheet, and what we got is each month, these values are being pulled in based on that scheduled job on a monthly basis. And then, as we go into the future, and then also they're being accumulated up. So we get this value, which is, I think, what people were wanting and being able to graph. So in this case, it's not updated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run that scheduled job. We'll pretend it's the end of the month, and this scheduled job runs on its own. And I'll execute it. And that scheduled job is running. Let's run that one more time. And then I'm going to refresh page. And you can see, so at the end of the month, the last day you come in to get your report, and then you see that the values are updated. So that's nice. So now we have both the monthly values and the cumulative values. What's really nice about this is that, tabular information may be what you want, but also we could go out and now that we have that information, we have our charts built off that. So we have our monthly values from here, and we have our cumulative values. Now you'll see that one thing about our reports is we see when the data was last collected. So we can see that this was collected just earlier this morning, but hadn't been updated. So what I can do is if I click refresh, it'll take it a second here because it is going and, collecting the data, but then there we go. So, without any work, I came in at the end of the month. That report on the sheet had been updated based on values that were in that project record. And then I can go into my, my slide deck in this case. I can hit refresh, and then all my charts are updated, with the new cumulative value, the new month, and the new value for the month. So again, all automated, other than I guess in this case, I would be required to hit the refresh button in order to get that. But that's because the slide deck is set up that way. You can also schedule that to be updated automatically if you wanted also.
Absolutely. And what we saw in that example was applying the functionality to a single project, but there's something that, we saw there that pairs nicely with another capability of the base VividCharts product is scaled report generation, which generates standardized reports for every project in the system. So you could envision an earned value or cumulative report included on your monthly project status update or your quarterly program or portfolio review. So there's a lot of different ways to leverage what we just saw in that demonstration for a single project, but apply it at scale so we can leverage this style of reports for all kinds of different standard reporting out of the PMO. Okay. So the last use case that we're going to look at is based on ITSM data and service desk. So we work with a lot of service desks and talk with a lot who have these specific performance KPIs that they like to measure against on a monthly or quarterly basis. And it's far too common to see these service desk leaders and directors exporting data from ServiceNow on a cadence, a monthly or quarterly basis, and leveraging Excel to actually calculate the metrics that they measure their performance against. So takes a significant amount of time, but more importantly, it limits the visibility into this performance to that reporting cadence. So if it takes you a day or two to put the report together, you're not getting visibility into performance until you run that report each month. So we're going to step through this solution, but as you bring this to life in VividSheets, you have the ability to refresh this 24/7 on demand. So what we're going to look at here is the ability to leverage the VividSheets API and leverage a script that would automatically populate a VividSheet with a set of assignment groups or teams that are working tickets for the service desk. So auto-populate the sheet with the teams that we're interested in measuring performance for, and then having the VividSheets out of the box functions actually calculate those performance metrics on the fly. And that could just be counts and queries on ServiceNow data, but it can also be multiplying, dividing, summing up various KPIs and metrics directly in the sheet, even if that calculated value doesn't live in the ServiceNow platform. So I'll flip the screen share over to Gary again for the demo.
Okay, so let me pull over this here. Okay, so this is the sheet that he was talking about. Let's do a little bit of a rundown of what we're looking at here, just to kind of get our base and foundation underneath us. So what we have here are, these are the assignment groups, so our team names. These are the IDs for those. And those IDs are important to be pulled in because these are used in order to calculate our values over here. And at the top here, we have I guess there's 5 KPIs. So there are a couple of important things here that I want to look at. We, have hundreds of assignment groups. So in this report, what we wanted to do was each week pull out the top 20 groups based on the number of open incidents that week or the previous week. So that we can, kind of Pareto's principle, I guess, is what they're looking for, is like, can we look at the, top 20 that are maybe the most important to look at for that week? So in this case, again, each week that we have a scheduled job running at the end of the week that is going to rerun the values and then populate this list with, the top 20 for that previous week. So what's coming in automatically via the API is this column A to pull in the ID. And the reason why that's helpful is because we do use that ID again for the encoded query within, our values here. So like assignment group is A2, which is pulling in that ID. It wouldn't be too much fun if we were pulling that in manually one by one. And so that's automatically coming in. And then the team name is coming in also via that, via the API. What's nice is with the KPIs here, the KPIs get updated each time that this is run based on this information that's pulled in. So again, the top 20 is probably not going to be the top 20 every week, but I don't have to change any of my values here because as these are pulled in automatically, the formulas account for those values and then calculate the scores or the KPI values based on that. What I really like about this is, think about this, we got 5 KPIs that we're looking at today. But what if requirements change and, next week we have 2 more KPIs we need to add to this? I simply would need to, add another column with that KPI and another column with that KPI. And then it will also forever be populated in the future at the end of the week. So while this is nice, I think what's, also nice about this is think of how clear of a picture you get of your KPIs for this report, but then also the ability to expand pretty significantly if you have other values you're trying to look at is important. So again, at the end of the week, a scheduled job runs and then populates this. Just to kind of show you, let's say requirements change and maybe, we're not interested in the top 20, but maybe they're telling us that the top 25 are the most important. And so we got to add, the next 5. Just to kind of show you how this would work. I'll change that value in the scheduled job. And then I'm gonna kick off the scheduled job. Let's pretend it's the end of the week and I'm gonna just kick off that scheduled job. It will run. See that it's working here. I'll refresh. Oh, and then now I got my 25. So those are automatically pulled in. And so we do have 5 more items here. So, in order to populate those, I can just copy and paste down just like I would, and then hit my recollect. And now I'm going to collect, the values for all of those extras. So again, the requirements changed, which sometimes is really difficult when you're building reports because you have to go change scripts and all kinds of things. But in this case, it would be, a couple minute job to copy and paste the formulas down for the next 5. So again, it just shows you the power of this is what we have today, but your ability to expand on, change requirements or future requirements is fairly simple once you have the base set up.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm discussing manual reports in the field, one of the most painful downstream impacts of a manually created and crunched report is the fact that enhancing that over time or adding to that over time is really stunted if it's taking you a significant amount of time just to put together your current metrics or KPIs. So really having the framework here to have a report or a set of performance metrics that can live and grow with you without having the time crunch of having to manually produce it every month. It frees you up to enhance it and focus your efforts in that area.
Yeah, and I want to take this the next step further, right? So you may be okay with that tabular data, but maybe you need a report. And so this is where VividCharts becomes, the back half of the powerhouse of the situation, where, here's a chart built from that list that we saw based on the number of open instances week. And then, like all of our things in VividCharts, we can chart out, here's the total active incidents for each of those top 20 working groups we had. And so again, this could be a view that I share with people as a report that don't want to see just tabular information. They want to see graphical information. But, like all things in VividCharts, you can share it this way, or you can share it as an export, as a PDF or PowerPoint to send to other stakeholders also. So just wanted to complete that story because it doesn't end just at the sheet if it doesn't need to.
Absolutely. And another area we see this being applied is, so we've got, internal service desk teams that are reporting their own performance up to C-suite or different stakeholder groups. But what we also see come up is if you have a managed service provider that's actually running a certain level of support for your service desk. So say you have an MSP that's covering all tier 1 support. That MSP probably needs to report back to you how they're performing, against certain KPIs that you and they care about to measure their performance. So you can leverage it internally for your own service desk team's performances, but also for your partners that are delivering services and you want a single view where you're both measuring performance off of. So really great way to leverage internally as well as with your partners and managed service providers out there. Okay, so let's get back into the slide deck here and talk a little bit about what we've seen today, just to kind of summarize and plant some seeds on suggestions of where you could take the concepts that you've seen today and apply them for your organization. So we saw the VividSheets API and combining that with the base functionality of VividSheets to generate and structure data in table format, to calculate data and send it to store in a sheet over time to then report on in a more time series format, and even taking the data in a sheet that's being formulated and write that back to ServiceNow to make data input go from manual to automated and efficient. So some of the things you could be thinking about here are, what are the scenarios where you're going to excel for data manipulation, whether that's to get performance metrics just derived from ServiceNow data that you can't get in the platform, or to structure and format data from a different system that you ultimately need to get into the ServiceNow platform for roll-up reporting. What opportunities could this open up for more efficient data entry and analysis for your teams? So one of the things we can do, and it's very common for us coming out of a presentation like this, if you have an Excel or PowerPoint driven report that is manual today and came to mind during today's presentation, we can assess that for free and come back to you with a solution brief on, hey, for that specific report, here are the tool sets that we would use to fully automate and streamline that for your team and your organization. So some things to think about. Something else we'll touch on is some of the capabilities that we have in the works here at VividCharts that are on the product roadmap. And two of those instances would be something we're calling style data tables and the ability to embed different reports and views into workspaces in ServiceNow. So Gary, I'll let you speak to kind of what we have researched and planned in these two areas.
Yeah, so when we released VividSheets, we kept saying it was a place to stage your data. And I talked about this previously, but VividSheets really was to solve our problems that we were helping solve for customers, in that they needed a way to collect and aggregate their data that they would then go use in VividCharts to build their charts and have special needs there. So one of the things that we didn't tackle because we weren't, the data was going elsewhere. It wasn't necessarily going to be living in, a sheet isn't the format that a lot of people initially were wanting to share. But we've had a lot of people say, tabular is pretty nice. Like I love the graphs in VividCharts. We love the charts that you guys have in the library, but I kind of just want a table of data. And so, what you see here at the top actually is a similar, uh, actually, that is the exact demonstration we just gave for the most part, but it's a styled table is what we're calling it. And so people do want just tabular data to be able to share. And so what we're working on and what we've been researching and building the interfaces for is like how giving people the opportunity to design that table in a way that looks beautiful. And so, we take pride in the visual aesthetics of the things that we develop. And we wanted to take this a little bit beyond just styling cells in a spreadsheet. And so the table is that. So where do those tables end up? Well, they can end up in a Vivid sheet or a VividCharts view or, a report. It's a nice place for them. But we've also been hearing that people would be interested in seeing those things and those tables live in workspaces. So that's what we've been investigating. We, have proof of concepts, and we actually have been building out, the tools to enable both the design and then delivery of those tables. What's really cool about, some of the things you see here is if you have that data available to you, maybe you put some charts also with it to, have the data table at the top is like a tabular summary of the data, but then you have the visual aesthetic also displaying what the meaning of that tabular data is through the charts. And you can see that below as like a proof of concept that we've shown.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else I'll mention is if you're a developer on the webinar today and you're interested in these, the ability to embed in workspaces, if that's something that you're investigating, or if you have interest in seeing under the hood and getting into the code of what we did with the VividSheets API to demonstrate these solutions today, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. We have it all built and we could walk you through that in more technical detail on an individual call. Some of the other things or steps you could take coming out of today's webinar that are good opportunities to explore further. I mentioned at the start of the webinar, VividSheets is free and available on the ServiceNow store, so you could go download that today and start leveraging the capabilities. Gary mentioned the documentation. There's some pretty robust KPI libraries and documentation around that, so a lot to get started on your own. But again, if you have that already existing manual spreadsheet and you want us to assess it, we'd be happy to do that for you and kind of propose back, here's how you would automate it and make that process more efficient. If some of the other report types we were talking about today, like automated slide decks or embedding in workspaces was interesting, you can book a demo directly on our website. It's very easy to schedule. And we're also going to be out at Knowledge next week. So Gary, myself, and a team of 7 of us are going to be out at Knowledge. That's PZK01 in the Partner Innovation Zone. And we do have a presentation slot on Tuesday, May 7th at 10:30 a.m. PST. So if you're going out to Knowledge, definitely encourage you to catch our presentation and come say hi at the booth and get access to the experts from VividCharts that are going to be there to discuss the products you saw today. And with that, we're just going to pause and open it up to any questions that have been dropped in or that you have at this point. Yeah, so we'll just kind of hang on. But if you were able to join today, just really appreciate you attending and feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat there.
Rob, as we're waiting for people to pop in with questions, I would not be doing my job if I didn't also promote the fact that we do have new releases of both of these products that just were put into the store. So if you tried the first version of VividSheets out, or if you're a VividCharts customer, there's new shiny applications that were just put in the store just in time for Knowledge. So just wanted to call that out.
Yes, great call out.
I have to self-promote sometimes.
Absolutely. All right, and it doesn't sound like we had any questions dropped in the chat, so just want to say thank you to everyone who was able to join today. If you're out at Knowledge, come say hi next week and have a great rest of your day. I'm going to shut the webinar down. Thanks again.